What was before the eyes of the Elden Lord was nothing more than an abhorrent state of an abominable land, as the stench of a mouldy swamp lingered in the air with rancid and putrid essences that would make the stomach of even a strong man sick. The land was covered in black ethereal bile, and the land was scorned with darkness, with only subtle light to guide the way. Tendrils of dark mass wrapped and choked the land, and the ruins of structures ancient and dark scattered the land as if they had some historic value long lost. What was worse was the ghoulish screaming that was ever present in the air. If you were to put your ear to the sky, you would hear cries of mercy, cries for the embrace of death, and cries of the many children for their mothers. The portal led the Elden Lord to a very wretched place, shortly before it itself began to shriek a menacing cry that closed its gates behind him. He could not return. He looked towards the black land that showed very little sign of life, although the frequent stirrings of creatures was near, always. The artifact he had received from Luciferius that allowed him to track where Millicent's soul was being held was firmly in his hand. As he placed strands of her hair into it, the soul compass came to life, with whirring magic and a gentle hum of machinery inside its beautiful form. A light was cast into the sky, and it trailed just like the sights of Grace did. Just like the sights of Grace did. He had a direction, and with every fibre of his being he rushed to follow it. He stumbled onto a road. A horrible black ancient road that saw great evil in its use. An evil stirred in its design, as figures of darkened form, made from the same black etheric material, walked this road. These humanoid forms were crying, silently, with faint murmurs of pain being inflicted upon their souls, silently as they wept. As the Elden Lord followed these former people, he saw it revealed in the distance, as the compass pointed to it also, the Wraith Tree. A tree of huge proportion, half the size of the great Erd Tree itself, made from black etheric material. It sucked souls of the dead inside to feed the darkness of the realm itself. It truly was a cursed thing to look upon, as the thousands of humanoid husks marched to its feeding. The Elden Lord could feel a harrowing darkness radiated from it, as swirls of white light glimmered around the tree, with shrieking cries cast from it. Even the Elden Lord heard them from a great distance. The Elden Lord, however, instead had hope stir within his heart, for it was the same tree that he had saw in the vision with Millicent, and all he had to look for now was a sunken cathedral. After hours of walking, he dared not summon Torrent to a dark and foul world as this. He eventually came across a great gatehouse that was connected to a castle known as Sorrow Keep. This great castle was already half sunk into the black ethereal waters of what would be called the sea. The same as Abergenwald Castle was, although by its standards, the castle was demonic in form and cursed with a living darkness. The castle's main structure was circular, and great stone ramps would take a person to the very top courtyard, which housed and rooted the great Wraith Tree. Thousands upon thousands of walking black husks of former peoples would march towards the top, and eventually be devoured by the tree, but kept the darkness of the land fed and happy with their soul energies. He saw his first foes before him. The gatehouse housed numerous black-armoured knights that were similar to the golden ones that he had faced at Abergenwald Castle. These black knights held devious halberds, enchanted with a power to split flesh and armour with very little ease. Supported by them were ethereal skeletons, beings made out of black ether, which writhed for flesh and soul, tendrils of darkness summoned out of their bone-like shapes. What was worse, however, were the wraiths that guarded the gatehouse itself. Beings that were made of dark energy, impervious to physical harm, to which luckily the Elden Lord had great arcane knowledge to counter them. The roots of the rave tree were black as darkness itself, and stirred inside them a hungering energy like all else in this abominable land. These roots fortified the castle, but fortify from whom, you may ask? Good question, since there was no foe that could stand against the darkness. Until now. So you have come finally. I grow eager to feed upon your soul. Join us, be with us, and I will feed on you both eternally, and you can both be together forever. You are now mine, and you cannot leave. Give me a feast, said a blackened voice of evil and darkness as the land shook upon this black speech. I do not think so, foul evil. I laugh at your attempts to sway me. For I know fear. I do not think so far. I love you. Right. I laugh at your attempts to sway me, for I know you fear me, and you should. For I have not come to dine at your table, but rather to upend the table itself, and cast you back into the void of the abyss from whence you came. Such arrogance. Before the Elden Lord was an army, an army that had sprung into formation as he approached the blackened gatehouse. Skeletal warriors and archers defended the area with 100 strong. Black knights of 30 in number formed on the gate, creating a barrier with their black steel armoured bodies, relishing to use their black hungry swords, hoping to kill the Elden Lord for their black master. 20 of the skeletal warriors surrounded the Elden Lord, waiting for him to attack, as their blackened bones moved with an ethereal energy that hungered to feed on his soul. In an instant, the Elden Lord moved like a dancer, rolling and dodging as he incanted his armour, his body, his sword, and probably even his soul with anti-curse magics. The sword ripped through these ethereal menaces, and the magic that flowed from the claws of the wraiths did very little damage, for his armour was indeed defended. As he swerved and danced, his sword met with the Black Knights, and cleaved through their black armour like butter. Although they had many in number, it seems as if their forms and power are weak, frail to even a subtle touch of the Elden Lord's mighty power. 3 minutes into the battle, more came, and more died, as his sword swirled around him and destroyed many a number in one great swing. A screaming darkness from the sky, angry at his resilience at such adversity, unexpected that he would be so brave. When in a second, 15 skeletons armed with black daggers of darkened steel unknown to any, slashed into him, piercing his armour. The Elden Lord's crimson essence flowed beneath him, nourishing the ground as dark flora writhed away in the undergrowth to nourish itself upon it. "Is that all you got?" shouted the Elden Lord defiantly aloud, as he quickly drank a crimson flask, restoring his body anew. As arrows of darkness pierced into him, he realized that the enemies he was slaying were coming back to life with even stronger purpose. There was a necromancer at play that gives these accursed beings purpose and animation, and the Elden Lord swiftly rose to his feet and sprinted as fast as he could up the ramps of the castle, but was so arrogantly undefended. Not even the gatehouse was shut. As he ran, he swiped many with his blade, and armoured ghouls, the same sort from the Regal Isles, came to face him, clad in spiked armour that would pierce his own and his flesh, and rip apart the insides of his noble being with grotesque volition. He remembered he told Heinous to attack armoured beings, whether creature or human, from below, and so he did. He swiped his sword from bottom to top and cleaved right through them vertically, destroying them thanks to his oversized sword that could reach them before their narrow and hauntingly sharp spikes could embrace the Elden Lord's flesh. The Black Knights swarmed the Elden Lord, There must have been hundreds at Sorrow Keep, cornering him into a small space as they encircled him, making the space tighter and tighter until one of them grabbed the Elden Lord by the neck and lifted him into the air as it unmasked his helmet, and instead a terror was seen. The creature's face was black with ethereal form, and it started to suck the soul out from the Elden Lord. And while the Elden Lord could not die, for once, he felt he could, and he knew he had to get out of there. Remembering the balance of power, how light and darkness must find balance, he saw no balance in this world, which gave him great thought and a daring idea. As the forces of a black abyss swarmed around him, he summoned a minor Erdtree onto the battlefield, and because the forces of darkness and evil had grown so weak and pathetic, they had no defense. The minor Erdtree's piercing golden ethereal glow shone so bright and proud that the enemies faded into ash as their forms were annihilated by such astounding beauty and grace. Never before had the Elden Lord seen beauty in the form of chaos, as the chaos of the golden rays of defiance broke through the walls of darkness eternal. The soul compass was now humming louder and louder, with the trail getting brighter and brighter as he eventually approached the final gatehouse, which was void of activity. Out of the darkness then came 15 black knights, forming a line as they marched downward from the gatehouse towards the Elden Lord, who was so excited now, for Millicent was so near. What came into view next, however, was something else entirely, something completely unexpected. A black ethereal dragon emerged out from the shadows of the gate, and roared loudly that pierced the sky and the land around in a battle cry of legendary power. The Elden Lord did not care. It was just another obstacle to him, and charged the creature with sword face front, like some mad powerful knight of old tale and legend. The black dragon smashed through the allied black knights, rendering them apart from their armour, as their ethereal beings shrieked and cried as they faded away out of existence, and grabbed the Elden Lord in its black ethereal claws, while its spiked black wings that flowed like liquid blankets of darkness whirred to life, lifting the Elden Lord and itself into the sky, smashing him into the castle structure and rock, doing immense harm to his body and to his armour and body, before throwing him to the Resurrect at the topmost castle courtyard, the very top of the castle. The Resurrect stirred with screaming energy as it began to pull the Elden Lord closer and closer to its black ethereal trunk, hungering for his soul as hundreds of black hands began to emerge from its void and reach for him with such hunger and malicious will about them. As a hand grasped an inch away from his face, he steered his resolve and pushed back, leaving the Resurrect's hungering aura just before the black ethereal dragon landed for another attack. In the face of the great black tree, the Elden Lord faced the great black ethereal dragon of Sorrow Keep and studied the beast, while maintaining great focus and willpower. The Elden Lord in a battle cry roared aloud and charged the creature of darkness. The beast swiped with its claws, but using its wings to amplify the force of its body for the attack, but the Elden Lord rolled over the vicious black driving claws, and as he came to, swiped with his sword across the dragon's neck, decapitating it from its body as it fell into a puddle of ether, screaming in pain as it did so. Victory. The Elden Lord was tired, and realized he only had half his number of crimson flasks left. As sights of grace were rare, he knew he had to conserve what few remained. what few remained. He looked to the soul compass, confused as to why it was pointing everywhere at once, only to realize it was pointing to the tree. Is her soul inside the tree? He thought to himself, pondering, before realizing that it would be best to find the sunken cathedral first, rather than jump to conclusions of a grandeur scale. A darkness crept up behind him, for out of that puddle of ether a form emerged into deathly glory, the revenant angel. This deathly being was once a man who lived in the mundane world, and was a powerful necromancer that helped build the necrotic army that defended the Regal Isles from the Empyreans 1,000 years ago. After the war, with very few remaining on the island, he desired the land for himself, and started slaughtering the locals that had survived the war. His experimentation on the necrotic arts allowed him to create armies of soldier and metal armour that were called armoured ghouls, as well as draugr, skeletons, and demonic wolves. He was entirely responsible for all the accursed creatures that plagued the islands. His reign was cut short, however, when Erlengald slayed the necromancer, shortly before the necromancer himself cursed Erlengald with sickening madness and lunacy. As the necromancer's body was shattered and warped by Erlengald's gravity-altering weapon, his body died, but his soul became trapped in the realm of the Dark Eternal, and for his dark and twisted services was transformed into an angel of death, a creature capable of immense power at summoning and resurrecting dead beings. The Revenant Angel stood as a tower at 20 feet tall, and had wings of darkness, a darkness that moved when the souls of the living are near. He held a large scythe-looking sword that required both his hands to utilize, and his face was of black etheric flesh, shaped like a skull, and shrouded by a black veil that was armoured and could resist mighty arrows. As the two faced each other, the Angel of Death would not make the same mistake as it did in dragon form, and instead was the first to charge, while black knights emerged from behind and charged the Elden Lord also. The Elden Lord held his ground, and ignited his blade in fire and wielded his spear in the other. He threw the spear at the Revenant Angel, piercing it in the shoulder, as the red blade of the spear sliced through blackened foam with ease. As the Angel of Death was distracted, he charged through the black knights like butter. The blade of fire turned armour into bubbling and sizzling chunks of metal, igniting the dark forms residing inside, evaporating into nothing as they cried out in pain. The Revenant Angel grabbed hold of the Elden Lord in a surprise attack move, ripping into his armour with its claws. As gold and red life essence converged, he cried out in pain as he was thrown to the ground, and a black voice laughed at his suffering, amused by his antics. It continued to pound him with its scythe, ripping his flesh and health away. The Elden Lord was near death on the ground, and he had not seen a sight of grace since he entered this miserable plane of existence. Could the Elden Lord truly die here? He drank his crimson flask with only a few remaining, and stood to his feet once more, to the amusement of the Revenant Angel, who mocked him openly.
Enough of these foolish games. You cannot escape, Elden Lord. It is only a matter of time until you submit, and then you and I have an eternity.
A black voice of evil once more resonated throughout the land, but this time the source was clear. It was coming from the Wraith Tree. Not now, not later, not ever. If you want me, you have to come and claim me. The Elden Lord proudly stood in defiance, as all the forces of darkness failed to break his resolve, ever determined to reunite with Millicent. There was an anger in the air. Something had changed. Was the force of darkness that dominated this world so impatient, so pathetic, that they could not wait more than a few simple hours to break the Elden Lord? As the Black Riving once said, they had eternity, but yet It grew more and more impatient with every victory. The Revenant Angel charged with a small army of Black Knights towards the Elden Lord once again, and as they neared, the Elden Lord smiled with a hefty grin. 5 seconds before collision, the Elden Lord summoned a minor Erdtree once more, engulfed the sword in flame, caused a great barrier of gold to form before him, and streamed a surge of flame. The minor tree weakened the defences considerably of the enemy force. A great barrier of gold stopped any arcane power from hurting the Elden Lord, such as the ethereal claws and the scythe blade of the Revenant Angel, and the surge of flame lighted the enemy on fire, distracting them and causing significant injury enough to allow the Elden Lord with his flame-imbued sword to slice through the enemy and boss, felling them all. As the Revenant Angel faded with the screams of its defeat, the enemies of the castle evaporated like water, leaving only the remnants of armour and weapon behind where they stood. Ironically, as soon as the last enemy fell, a sight of grace emerged near the Wraith Tree. The Elden Lord was grateful, and held his head up high and proud as he waltzed around it, and sat in its golden radiant glow. He increased his attributes with arcane, mind, intelligence, and faith. He never took magic for granted again. As he sat and stared at the Wraith Tree that openly mocked him, he stood and charged the tree, knowing it would potentially eat away at his soul as he grew closer. But as he did so, he casted the black flame upon his blade and thrusted it into the trunk of the Wraith Tree. It had no effect other than to amuse the evil within, as laughter echoed in the darkness above. The Elden Lord turned with excitement, looking at the soul compass that now worked as it began to show a strong trail. He casted the meteorite of Astel on Sorrow Keep's wall, and a large object fell from the sky to the ground. It collapsed the wall into the black etheric sea below. He ran and escaped Sorrow Keep, for he now saw the sunken cathedral in the distance. Millicent awaited him. That was chapter 11. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next chapter.